Hello and welcome to Electropreneur Secrets, the Electrician's Podcast. I'm your host, Clay Newmeyer. With me, as always, my esteemed co-host, Joseph Lucani. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm feeling a lot better than I was previously. Fighting the man cold. We're getting there. I'd say I'm like 98% good.
Fantastic, man. Really good to hear that. We are here with you guys 5 days a week to help you master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. Ironically, that premium service tends to take care of most of the rest. But if you've followed us at all this week, we've been talking about that hierarchy of business needs, and sales is right there in the bottom, the foundation. Because, Joe, without this exchange, how far will a business really go?
It really only goes as long as your savings will hold out and as long as your credit score can keep getting you loans, but it's never a fun road to run down.
So, is it even a business without the exchange?
No, really, at a certain point, it becomes a charity. If you're in a situation to where your business cannot sustainably run without constant loans or assistance or handouts, you're not running a business. You're literally just moving money sideways or unfortunately diagonally down.
Right. So that said, we want to help you guys with sales. Every week we come out to do that with some of the best stuff we can find. Now, this day is actually no exception because it's Optional Friday, Joe's personal favorite.
I do
always looking at new ways to push the envelope to help you guys see other ways to introduce options. Because one of the biggest things we hear, and guys, you can confirm this by putting your hand up if you're driving, a customer is watching, or if you're live with us in the Electropreneur group, go ahead, throw one in the chat to confirm that, hey, sometimes it's hard to come up with 6 options. Sometimes it's hard to come up with 3 options. And if you're like many, hey, sometimes we only give an option.
Ooh, heresy. Heresy.
I know it's a cringy comment, but it happens, Joe.
It does, unfortunately. You're right.
You want to touch on this quick again? What's this downfall? Why do we need to give more than an option?
Oh, God. So when you give one option, you've just given an ultimatum. It's yes or no. Doesn't matter how good your choice is, it only gets 2 options. Either you like it or you don't like it. Some people do better. They go, oh, good, better, best. Or even worse, they go better, good, best. And they start with the worst and go, we're up.
Can I ask a personal question? Sorry to interrupt. What happens if you give Mel an ultimatum? Joe's wife. What happens if you give her an ultimatum, Joe?
So I've come to the conclusion that my wife is probably one of the smartest people I know. And she balances me in so many different ways, both spiritually, emotionally, everything. So if Mel was ever given an ultimatum, I would question and say, was I doing my right job as a husband?
Okay. Well, that was meant to be fun, and you made it very sentimental. And I appreciate you, Mel, and I appreciate you, Joe, and you guys have a lovely marriage. But I'm going to tell you flat out, if I give Mariel an ultimatum, I'm going to get a licking. Things are not cool for the rest of the day, maybe the week. I might be sleeping on the couch, you guys.
Oh, geez. Yeah, you know what? That actually probably, if you were going to make it funny, then you're not wrong. And at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we always have a fair and equitable exchange, both in our businesses and in our relationships.
Right. So when we have just one option, it really says, hey, come meet me here so we can work together. When we present 6 options, we're way on the other side of this going, hey, I'm willing to work with you anyway, anyhow. From the absolute.
Let me do
my
it.
Sentence here.
So what we do is we've designed a range of choices from the finest that money can buy to the most bare bones economical you can do. The reason why we did this is so that you're in control of level of quality, safety, customer service, as well as being in full control of your budget. If I were to do that for you, would I be wrong to do so?
No, not at all, sir. And you've just successfully communicated by your action that you truly want to work with us. And as we've said so many times before, you say it so eloquently, that's a great choice.
It is a great choice.
Bottom option?
Also a great choice.
All right. And today we're talking about something that might be
a bottom option,
but still a
great option.
All right.
God damn, I love it. It was funny how we're like literally on sync on this.
It's
So
orchestrated. There we go.
there you go.
So, guys, have you ever heard of Joe? You got to help me with the name of this. And by
Mm,
the way, I'm brand new to this concept. Joe's put a little legwork in, so I've got some devil's advocate questions, and we're just going to work
mm.
through this today.
Sounds solid. So the product itself is called the ConnectDER or the ConnectDER. Kind of funny how the name sounds, but it's a product that's made by Siemens, and it solves a very specific need that anyone who ever gets involved in Tesla chargers has to deal with. So I'd like to explain what the typical Tesla call is like, and then where this particular product would benefit. Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds really helpful, man. Let's
Okay,
do
cool.
it.
So the typical call is usually someone saying, "Hey, I bought a car, or I'm thinking about buying a car. I need a charger installed." Very rarely do they ever think it's anything more than, "I'll just plug it into the panel. I'll put this charger that I got for $500 in the wall, and everything will work. And I'll have the perfect charging system. And there's nothing else I need to consider other than this." That's unfortunately the average customer's mind as they look at these systems. We as electricians recognize there's a lot of other factors that come into place, such as, okay, what does the current service look like? Not the main meter itself. Usually that's no issue. It's what's the interior main electrical control system look like, or the panel for the, layman's terms. We would recognize it and say, is there space in the panel? Is it overloaded? And if it's not, and all those conditions are great, what is the distance from that panel to the location that you're going to put the Tesla charger? So, just for the sake of argument, does it sound like that's a little more involved than what the customer is thinking right off the bat?
Oh, of course. I mean, like many of us who've had these frustrations in here, they went to the EV charger first, just like
Mhm.
they go to the hot tub dealer first. And that person sold them sweet nothings about how easy it would be to install this little electrical charger in their home that would take care of the car, no doubt.
Anytime I hear or see 15-minute easy installation on packaging, I want to flay the engineer who thought of that, because nothing's easy. All we're doing by saying it's easy is making the customer want to buy it and then argue with us when we tell them the reality of the situation.
Yeah, it's a setup. You're right.
It really is. I mean, like you even see that in Generac branding. They'll say easy installation, but requires a licensed electrician in 12 hours to do. It's like, okay, then it's not so easy now, is it?
No.
Okay. So get back to the point with the Tesla chargers. Let's say I'm going to create two scenarios. Scenario A, everything's looking great, right? Or even if it's not, the customer is understanding to the reality that they need to do a system upgrade, right? They have either a 100 amp service and they need a bigger panel, or they have a 200 amp service and they need to expand it, or they need to have something with further distances. They're okay saying, yeah, I know I've got a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home. My panel's on one side. I want my charger on the other side. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So in all three situations there, that's what we'd want. We want our customer to say, this is okay. I'm willing to move forward with it. So we've usually designed 6 choices from we're including the electronics protection, we're including the mobile monitoring, the sensing systems, all those things. Where this particular piece of technology helps us is when the customer is not okay with the suggestions that we've made. Now, we've all agreed we want to work with this customer. We don't want to we've paid for the lead, we've gone to their home, we've taken the time to design the choices, and they're telling us no.
And in some
Whether
cases, maybe even a 2-call close here. So
yeah,
you're
I mean,
invested.
you're invested in this at this point. And for anyone who doesn't know that reference, the 2-call close is a concept where we're going to say, I'm going to meet with the customer. And if they tell us that they're only getting an estimate or they're just looking into this, we're going to follow our process and follow certain steps, which ensures we have a second appointment to where we're the last person in the home and we're able to show them a range of choices broken down of how it benefits them. So that's the 2-call close mentality. So let's say you're there and you've gotten to 2-call close and this customer is just like, no, I can't swing this. This is not something I'm going to do. I bought the car. I was told the charger was only going to be $600. And now you're telling me it's $3,500 to run it from the side of the house. What do we do? So this product is called ConnectDER or ConnectDER, depends on how you want to pronounce it. The way it works is it's actually an adapter that goes into your meter socket. So most meters are 5-horn meters, and this is almost an adapter that connects directly into that spot. What it does is it has a 60 amp or a 40 amp breaker that comes off of it. It's actually built into that hub and also has what's known as a quick connect wire whip off the top of it. The meter then plugs into that. And as it plugs in, also activates the 60 amp breaker. Now, what you've done is you've allowed 60 amps of power to come from the meter directly from the overhead conductors. It is still entirely code legal and does not require you to separate your grounds and neutrals in that panel. But you'll have the ability of now legally providing that 60 amps of power without requiring to upgrade that 100 amp panel. Now, obviously, that's not the most ideal way of doing it. But in a situation like this, I can see it being really helpful. Imagine you're in a home and the customer has their panel on one side of the home, but they have their meter on the other. Sometimes that happens, right? Where they have different locations. And the meter itself is actually closer to where they're going to charge the car than where the panel would have been.
Right.
What we can do is we would plug in our adapter into the meter socket, then plug our ConnectDER into that and have the meter plug into ConnectDER. Then that whip comes off of it and it can then go directly to where the car charger is going to be. What we've been not allowed to do now is now we bypass the system. It is 100% code legal. This would pass inspection. It allows them to have a safety disconnect that's close to where they're going to be. And you can do anything you want from it. There's a lot of upsides to this because now if the customer were to say, well, I want the car, but I don't want to upgrade my panel. You can say, well, I understand that. The best way would be to upgrade your panel, but I also understand if you're looking for a more economical solution or a more temporary solution, this is a viable way to go until you can come up with the funds that you need to upgrade your panel. So you can get the job now, as well as setting yourself up to get more work in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're in the group and you've seen this before, please let us know. Let us know if you've worked with this device before. And if you have any questions, by all means, chime in here. I know for us, we have to get the authority involved to do that meter swap or any work on that. They're car sealed. That's just what you're supposed to do. Is that the case where you are, Joe?
Yes. So granted, every jurisdiction is different. And I'm pretty sure every electrician who's ever held a pair of alignment pliers has said they've cut off tamper tags before.
Yeah.
So we've all been there. We've all done it. But if you're going to legally pull a meter, normally what you'd have to do is you contact your utility company. They come, they provide you either an overhead disconnect or an underground disconnect. Then they give you authorization to pull the meter. Before you can put the meter back in, you have to have a code inspector come and ensure that it's meeting safety standards. And then they'll allow re-energization.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I'm assuming standard load calc applies. This is still pulling 60 amps directly off the stream ahead of your panel, your service panel, right? So, yeah, you're still needing to take that into account, right?
So that's the thing. And that's why I find so interesting. Have you ever noticed that when you go and you can have a 200 amp panel being fed by number 2 aluminums overhead on triplex? And I always wondered, I was like, why? Why is that the case? If I were to put that in a conduit, suddenly I know that it is drastically less ampacity. The reason why, at least from my understanding, is when you have conductors in open air, they are allowed to conduct at a higher ampacity. And unfortunately, most utility companies will just push them to the ends of their limits until they physically burn up in space and melt out. They're not going to change them. We've mentioned about our struggling infrastructure. So this actually is a code legal way of bypassing it because it's not straining the 100 amp service. And in addition to it, it's pulling before it actually is on the meter socket itself.
Right.
So it's just getting from the meter to this source, and everything else goes through the rest.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So what other uses? I mean, you mentioned EV chargers, but that's just one situation.
Correct.
Do you have any other uses in mind for this device?
Oh God, yeah. So there's so many things you can think about for a 60 amp load. My first thought is, imagine if we closed our eyes and said, where do we normally see panels? Or where do we normally see meters? Normally, in my mind, I see them in a utility side of the home, right? You've got your condenser, you've got your hot tub, or your pool heater, you've got your panel, you got it all fenced out and over the way. What of those things required 60 amps? Could you power your condenser to it? Could you power your pool heater to it? All these things are fully viable. Now, once again, I'm speaking to all the electricians out there. I know we want to sell the upgrade. I get that. And I'm not going to say do this instead of that. What I'm trying to say is this is an extra bullet in the chamber. You have the ability of saying, if this doesn't work, I have a legal and viable way that we can get this taken care of for you until you can have the funds to do it the way that we recommend. That is a huge thing. Because if you think about it, what would happen if a customer were to say, I already bought the car. I spent 80,000. I bought the car. It's here. I'm not getting my money back on that. But I also don't have the funds to spend $5,000 redoing the main, or even more, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, redoing the electrical infrastructure, rerunning conduits. Maybe they can't get applied for financing. Well, what would they do otherwise? Otherwise, they're forced to go with someone who's going to give them a subpar job, maybe no permit, no inspection, do its cash. Well, with no permit inspection, you actually don't have a Tesla warranty. It requires a permitted and utility sign off, or at least, sorry, it requires at the bare minimum a permit, because if they don't have a permit, it no longer voids, it no longer has the warranty in place. They will literally void the warranty if they haven't showed that it was legally installed.
Right.
So you have someone else who does it by cash, does it on the side, does it quick, does it cheap, and you ever have an issue, the customer is the one who's screwed, not the technician, not the contractor. In this option, we can say, if you can't get financed, if you can't upgrade through this, I can still take care of you safely and legally until you have the option of doing it on a more permanent establishment. And I feel like that's a great way of establishing a new way of getting your clients.
Yeah. What would you say if they were to take the stance of, well, this is a permanent establishment, a
Well,
permanent installation?
it's not permanent. I mean,
That's how
like,
I'm
I don't know,
feeling.
like,
There's a lot of nots. I
yeah, I
honestly, if I
I
can
had to
be
think about
frank,
that.
as I'm looking at this on the other screen, I'm feeling naked and like I've been done wrong. I'm not sure why I've got that feeling. This
Yeah,
just seems like it's skipped ahead and jumped in between what we usually do.
yeah.
And it's just new. It's new. It's entirely uncomfortable, Joe.
It's a new and uncomfortable technology because it makes us think outside of the normal comfort zone, right? So, in my opinion, the reason why I was like, it's not a permanent establishment is that I, as a premium service provider, my number one thought is always, I'm changing that panel. I'm running the conduit. I'm doing all those lines. But at the same time, it's not my money. I'm not the one to choose whether they're going to be able to get their car charged or not. They bought the car, and it's my responsibility to figure out how I can properly serve them. So if I design 6 choices, I could think to myself saying, like, in fact, can we talk about how we'd make options on this for car
Yeah, we can.
chargers?
Yeah.
So if you were going to say, what is your ideal installation? I'd be like, okay, I could have my charger at the top, maybe upgraded panel or maybe modified panel. I would have new dedicated lines run to the garage, enhanced lines for future expansion, maybe a sub panel in the garage at 100 amps. So if you want to have 2 car chargers, you're good. Multiple levels of electronics protection, sensing systems in place, timer controls that are going to modify when it can get power in off-peak hours. So we'd have things from the highest level where they're like, holy crap, that's like a $16,000 charging system, all the way down less and less and less and less and less and less. This is your option 6. This is us saying, I know you weren't expecting this. I know the Tesla dealer told you could just plug this into your dryer outlet. That's not legal. And therefore, it's not going to pass inspection. And therefore, you have no warranty. We can do this for now until you can decide that you don't want it done this way. And we can always come back and run that hard conduit. but it is legal until we decide to come back.
Yeah.
I feel that's a very fair bottom option. And at least in that circumstance, I'd be able to say, I provided you with every choice. At that point, what else could they say? Am I like, from the finest to the least, it's there. This is not the best way, but it is a legal and safe way to get someone in they need in a pinch.
I can appreciate that. And I just want to add that I can see how this could go awfully wrong for a company if they were starting at the bottom every time.
Oh God, yeah. Oh God, no,
It
that's
could quickly become that $1,000 EV charger installation at every home on the block.
and that's the problem, unfortunately. Can I touch about starting from the bottom and why that's such a bad idea?
Please do.
All right. So let's say I know you're an electrician, so this is gonna be an unusual example. But let's say, sake of argument, I wanted to come and do some work at your house. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna come by. You and I are friends, and I'm gonna put in a ceiling fan in your daughter's bedroom. If I started at the bottom option, that would sound something like, yeah, you're gonna buy the fan, you're gonna have all the wiring ready, you're gonna buy all the material, and you're gonna have it sized and ready for me. Then I'm going to take the Romex. I'm just going to run it, or wire mold. I'm going to run it right on top of the sheetrock. In fact, I'm not even going to have a switch. I'm just going to plug it right into my bottom outlet. It's going to be a whipcord. And then you're going to go to the fan. It's just going to be pull chains. That's the bottom option. It's technically the worst you could do.
Yeah.
As a friend, would you think I'm doing you a service?
As not an electrician, yeah.
Maybe. As not an electrician. That's the thing. Some people are going to look at it and say, like, they'll say, hey, that might work. But the average person doesn't want to see Romex on their sheetrock, or they don't want to have a pull chain on their ceiling fan. So the thing is that you have to recognize that the option you start with, the customer is going to believe that you believe that's a viable fix. Instead, if I was your friend, I should come over and say, okay, here's a bunch of different ways we can do this. If you want, I'll do everything for you and you don't have to do anything, and I can make it look like it was always meant to be here. Or I can make it where you're more involved and you can do things. Or if you want, I could just hack this thing in, pay me cash, problem solved.
Yeah.
But when you start at the bottom, the big benefit of not doing that is if you give them a number. Let's say, sake of argument, my bottom option, I had option for $15,000 to $500. And they see your $500 option. They go, oh, that's not worth it. I can't do that. What are the odds you can go up? If they already said no to your lowest number, how could you go higher than that?
It's funny you say that, because just yesterday, as we were really talking through the Mike Michalowicz and finishing that cash management secret series, one of the first things that he mentions in his book, and we discussed, is primacy effect. And it's that bias towards what you see first. You focus on that and ignore the rest.
And that's why doing these top options is so important, because what we're doing is we need to be drastically different than our competition. So when we show the top option, we're also building our value up by saying we're doing first-class memberships. We're doing all the permits. We're doing the utility coordinations. We're ordering the chargers. We're running all the conduit. We're painting. We're spackling. We're trenching. You don't do a goddamn thing but write the check. I have every other thing is done by us. If the customer says no to that, that's fine. Every option beneath that becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And every time you ask, you can say, so how would you like to proceed? How would you like to proceed? How would you like to proceed? So you get to ask for the sale 6 times. Then all the way at the bottom, they get to choose their most economical fix. But every fix we provide has to be legal. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be legal. And this is a legal way that we can take care of our clients in a pinch so that we can help them and then also allow us to come back and set them up for even a more permanent service in the future. So it serves them, it serves us, and Tesla's warranty is still intact.
Makes sense, Joe. I can appreciate that for sure. So just like we started this show, we're coming back to any choice is a great choice.
Amen to that.
They're still choosing you, even if this product gives me the cringy feeling. Anything else you want to add to this one, Joe?
Really, I'd say it's time to get to actions and AllStars. That's what I think.
All right. You got
I
something
got some
prepared?
ideas. I got
Okay.
some ideas.
Okay.
All right. So the bare minimum action, bare minimum is actually going to be more focused on options itself than it is on product, right? If you are going to do the most bare minimum action, I'm going to ask you to offer three choices. The reason why I'm going to ask you to offer three choices is, let's say in this example, you were to say, top option, we're going to do everything perfect. Middle option, we're going to do everything to code standard. Bottom option is the most bare minimum code allowable installation we can do. If you were to present that to people, very likely they're not going to take your bare minimum. They're going to take either your second or your first. The all-star action is a little bit more. May I touch on that if that's okay?
Yep. Hit it.
The all-star action is I'm insisting that you offer 6 choices on every one. The reason why I feel that's so important is this. When you can design your choices at 2 premium, 2 mid-range, and 2 economy, not only are you offering a wider range, which gives you a better chance of getting the job, but it becomes easier for the customer to understand their value point. If you have 2 premium choices, it's this premium or that premium. If they go mid-range, it's this mid-range option or that mid-range. If they're economy, it's this economy or that economy. So whatever value part they're at, they will easily be able to identify where they stand. So the all-star action is offer 6 options. The standard action is offer 3 options. Is that a fair request?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Perfect circle back on this episode. Guys, we are running out of time, but thanks for joining us again on this fine optional Friday. I hope that you'll be able to check out the ConnectDER and have a look for yourself and see if it's something that can fit your option sheet next time you're doing maybe a solar installation or an EV charger installation or any of the like that could make use of this potential base option for you. As always, we're here to help you master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. We'll see you again next week.
Take care.